2 years ago, basically, I have been over Italy doing a lot of touring, of World War II touring, and I've written 4 books about the Italian campaign. I have 2 more to go, particularly including Sicily. And what you see here is some of the images taken during that time. And the interesting thing, if you look in the top left, you see General Patton at Gela, a short time after he came ashore. Right below that is his granddaughter, Helen, standing in the same position that he was standing in for that photograph. And then up in the town of Gela, you see him smoking on a cigar all the way over on the right, and her below that. What it shows is that, as we have indicated here, that and you've heard it from all the speakers, certainly Eddie, that there's a lot of commonality in all of our experiences in Italy and in the many different people you've heard from today and you'll hear from tomorrow. So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, I don't have the little widget. So basically my background, although Eddie said I'm a historian, really I'm a radio systems engineer. I spent 20 years in post-nuclear attack communications in the United States, and then about another 20 years in public safety communications and some IT. And the 4 books that I'm talking about are there. I also did a couple on COVID with people who are much smarter than me. And the point of this is that by doing those books and going all over Italy, I realized a few important things. One is that there are many places that big deals happened in the war, and there's absolutely no sign of it. There's no plaque, there's nothing. And if you didn't know from a guide that there was a major event there, the Hove dump is one, you would have no idea that it was a major part of the battle, such as Monte Artesimo, where the 36th Division got behind Velletri and finally the Germans left Rome. The point of all that is that much more needs to be done to memorialize World War II in Italy. And the reason, and you've already heard this, is because we need to protect our core democratic values in a world that looks a lot like 1939 or 1914 right now, with Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. So our democracies are always at threat, and so we need to unify ourselves through our World War II commemoration, which is an honorable meeting place, not only for the businesses that Alex has spoken about and that you heard from earlier, but also in the commemoration so that young people can understand the sacrifice made by the civilians and the soldiers long ago, and that the sacrifice is going on, as was said earlier, in Ukraine and other places, because basically the same kind of motivations that exist for dictators and others in the world persist as they did 80 years ago. So if we go to the next slide. So it turns out that I'm Italian as of 524 years ago. So one of my ancestors went from the Lombardy region to Carcassonne, eventually to Canada, and then down into the United States, which is how I became eventually an American. If we go to the next slide. So there's a lot of areas that can be brought together, not only the battlefields, which are unmarked, as well as those that are marked, and this is online, just as you heard Eddie talk about, at a minimum. And so in addition to that, the cemeteries. So it's natural and good that the cemeteries represent the national interests of the various countries in order to commemorate what happened. But we need to bring them together, as Eddie was talking about, so that we can go to one virtual site and be able to experience the full breadth of the full sacrifice that the world's democracies made in World War II. And that certainly, and I'm very proud that Germany and Italy are an integral and very important part of all of this, because it's about the future. Freedom for Italy is using the past, commemorating the past, in order to help secure our democratic future. And that's the heart of what it's about. But there are many things that can be brought together. In museums, if museums represented each other in some sense, at least virtually, they'd be a lot more powerful. Similarly with cemeteries, because human beings can only go to one or two places in a trip. If they're all brought together, you can experience them all, find those things you're interested in, and then go to them when you set up other trips. So it's important, the power of the museums and the cemeteries will be far greater if they can represent each other. How to do it? Well, we're trying to figure that out. We need help from everybody that's here and many others, and we'll talk about that right at the end. Also, hiking and biking trails, some of those exist, but there need to be many more with indications of what happened along those routes. Timelines, as you see, travel agencies, film, art, and music, as you're going to see a film later. There are a lot of examples of each of those that are fundamentally important, done by all countries, and they need to be brought together. It's important that we get the best out of the countries that have done this, but act as a unified organization in doing it. And I know that can be achieved. It's just that we're cutting across barriers that didn't exist before, or that have always existed, but the links have not existed, and we will create that in Freedom for Italy. If we go to the next slide. So it's important to realize, not only because of the democratic core nature, but each local community knows best about its museums, its historic sites, the guides it has, and beyond that, also the thing we have to tie to this, which is not only the major industry economics, but also the local businesses. All of those involved in tourism, the hotels, the restaurants, the guides, the transportation companies, and local media, all can be brought together to increase tourism in Italy. And this is in addition to the industrial deals between companies that can be made as a part of this, so that it becomes much more holistic in our representation of commemoration focused on protecting our core democratic values for the future. So in addition to the local councils we're creating across Italy, we have one on Sicily. We're creating them in different parts of Italy. Michele, you're out there somewhere, right? He is our chairman for the casino area and beyond. And Marco, you're still out there somewhere, right? And Marco's right there. And he is our Campo Marino and Foggia area council chairman. And his work is to bring together a group of people to bring together not only the historical commemorations in that region, but also the tourism, economic, and other industrial factors that could be really important in the long run. So it ties together the full scope of our culture, our economy, and our history, because if for many people the history is not tied to something, well, simply speaking, that money is involved in, it's going to be harder for them to spend a lot of time with it. If we can tie money to what it is that we want them to understand about history, as well as our core democratic values, it will be much easier. So in addition to that, we have country ambassadors. So we have a German ambassador, we have an American ambassador who is Helen Patton, the granddaughter of General Patton, and a number of others from other countries who will help to integrate Freedom of Italy to and with associations and organizations in those countries. And as Alex has said, he wants to see, and it's an excellent idea, that associations and organizations, people and countries that come to Italy can essentially find a friendly environment wherever it is they're doing their tour. Do you want to say something quickly about that, Alex, before I finish up? It's an excellent idea, and it's your idea.
Yeah, what Bob just said is that the role of the councils is to host the people coming from all over the world. So if we have a system, a frame, this is Freedom for Italy, is a frame with all the initiatives that are going on in Italy with all the museums, with all the cemeteries and so on. The role of the councils is to host the people coming from everywhere. And you had probably an idea today this is the headquarters of the Council for the Liberation of Rome. So the role of us here and the facility that you have visited is the headquarters of the Council. So here we can host the people coming from all over the world, try to show them our sites, historical sites, and also something that is not necessarily related to the Second World War. So we have very interesting Roman villas in this area. We have very interesting villas used by the popes in the past. So there is a lot to see, actually. But this is our role, to facilitate the people coming from everywhere. And this is what each council in the country should do. And here we have 2 or 3 councils under construction at the moment, because the network just recently started. And we're working hard. As I said, we have 60 museums, and if we can put them all together, we will have something interesting to offer. So the idea is to work all together with the Commission, the American, the Commonwealth Commission, with everybody together. We will certainly do something interesting.
Thanks, Alex. So every Sunday we do a Zoom call that has people from around the world putting ideas into this. James, stand for a second. He's been a great contributor to our World War II and Rome initiative. And we have many others, and they don't show up every week. What you see here, but that's fine. Whenever we can get people, we do. What you see here is the councils putting their content into basically the cloud, so that they can be accessible by people both at home, on the internet, or if you go to the next slide. So when you have your mobile phone in the field, as long as it sees the global positioning system, the phone knows where it is. And because it knows where it is, and because we know what's around you, we can point you at whatever your interests are: cemeteries, museums, events, because part of the experience is that there are many different commemorative and other events that happen at times, and they don't know about each other. They don't plan in an integrated way. And so this way there would be one repository where planning for future commemorative and other events occurs, and so that it can be better coordinated. And then if we go to the next slide. So we've done, this is our first Freedom for Italy launch conference. We've been involved with 3 others: in Sicily last year, then in Florida, and more recently I did one in Sicily in Italian, in which I read what you're hearing right now in Italian, and I'm sure it produced some humorous actions. But if you go to the last slide, Marco, because I made a mistake of telling Marco this, he used this, which is that Mark Twain once said that basically history doesn't repeat itself. It's never exactly the same thing with the same people, of course, but it often rhymes. And as I was saying at the beginning, and others have said earlier today, this morning, that basically we're in a position now where we need to better unify our democracies against the various threats. The democracy is tough. There's a lot of arguments. It takes forever to do anything, but as Winston Churchill said, it's the worst form of government except for all the others. And we want Freedom for Italy to represent that strength of democracy that we all have. And the problem is that in day-to-day life, you tend to fall into this mundane mode where you don't see what's at risk, as happened in 1914 and 1939. So we need to work together through commemoration to secure these democracies that we have and must treasure. And all of the means that we have can be brought together, as Eddie said, and as Alex said, in a virtual way online, and we might as well use that technology to do it. But we need everybody's help. What I found, I came up with the idea to do this, but the vast majority of the good stuff has come from all the people that Eddie and I, as we began this quest, became connected to. And the vast majority of good ideas, you never know who's going to say one thing, one sentence at one point that makes all the difference. And the more people we have involved, the better chance that we're going to come up with this success that we're brewing here. So thanks very much.